Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creighton. Willie Barney is editor and publisher of the Revive magazine, a bi-monthly magazine which focuses on North Omaha, and just an outstanding facilitator. So let's give a round Creighton welcome to Willie Barney, please.
I'm very excited to be here. When John called and asked about this opportunity, I was sharing with someone earlier that Inextricably Bound just jumped out of my spirit. Before I could even think of anything else, it was the first thing that jumped out, especially since almost a month ago, a little bit over a month ago now, Creighton honored me and humbled me in a way that, I was almost speechless. You can talk to my wife. I'm not very speechless very often, but my wife, when he called and said that Creighton was going to honor me with the MLK Award, because anything with MLK on it, I just take, it's almost sacred to me. But those words, inextricably bound, just jumped out of my spirit when I heard what John was looking at. And then when it agreed with what he was looking at and what was in his spirit, it just really floored me. And first of all, I want to thank everyone that's here. I realized when I looked at the schedule that the Creighton game is coming up and spring break is coming up. I wasn't sure how many people would come, but this is just, again, evident of the level of, I think, respect and hope and concern in some cases that people have, and looking at how can we work together in a more comprehensive way. And if you would allow me, there's some things that I want to just, typically I'm in a mode of facilitation, so I don't speak the way that I may speak tonight, and hopefully we'll get invited back. Is that all right? But one of the things, again, back to MLK, that really struck me, and I do a lot of presentations. As a matter of fact, Pastor Ford, who's here, and I at one time traveled to different places doing this presentation. But one of the things that strikes me is the I Have a Dream speech, which we see repetitively during January. How many people have actually gone back and read the first part of that speech? And one of the things that it really brings me back to is when he talks about the architects of our nation wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution, and he's talking about the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But he goes on to say, in our topic tonight, when he gets deeper into the message and saying, now is the time, that this is the time. And at the end of his life in 1968, Dr. King, and the message and the focus that he was on, there were really 4 key topics that he was focused on. The first one of them, jobs. The second one, education. The third one was housing. And the fourth one was support services for those in poverty. That was the key central message of Dr. King in 1968. Jobs, education, housing, and services for those that are poor and in poverty. And here we are having a presentation in 2012, some 44 years later, and you look at the priorities, I think, of Creighton and the priorities specifically of the Empowerment Network, comes back to those very same topics. There has been some progress, but in some ways, we have gone backwards. That's hard for some to receive, but in some cases, in certain parts of our city, we have literally gone backwards over the last 40 years. So what do we do as a community? What can we do collectively to move forward? Again, one of the things that struck me as I was preparing for tonight is, and John and I talked about this last summer, I was shocked at how involved and deeply involved Creighton is in certain areas of North Omaha already. I didn't realize the adopted school piece that was going on. I just learned about, from Dr. Kosoko, the work that's going on with the health career pathway. And I've noticed more and more people from Creighton involved in our Omaha 360 initiative on the violence initiative, and there's so many other things. The service department, how engaged the students are. As a matter of fact, Ken brings new students down the street to OEDC, and we have conversations, and they ask questions about Omaha, and they're engaged, and they're coming to events. So there's something happening on the campus of Creighton that is creating a more open and welcoming environment where people are coming and crossing that big divide that I heard about when I moved here 12 years ago, is that you might as well have a river on Cuming Street because the divide is that large. That's the perception in some cases. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Is that a reality? Is it just perception? What does it mean when you hear that a student comes in and says that they're told by someone, unofficially, that you don't go past a certain street in Omaha? Is that real? You know, what does that mean to us? And is that continuing? Can we have a conversation? Are we doing okay? And those are the kinds of things that we want to talk about tonight. But also, one of the things that's really striking, and everybody in here, when I think about what Creighton has stood for and still stands for, when you talk about justice, and you talk about social entrepreneurship and education and health, there's some of the very same issues that we are consistently at the table working on in a collaborative, collective basis to try to improve conditions, not only in North Omaha, but around the city. So I just wanted to make some opening comments and get you thinking about where we are, some of the progress that's been made, and the bridges that are being built between Creighton and North Omaha and African Americans, if I say that. What are the things that are going well? Then what are the things that we can do to take this to the next level? I mentioned some of the programs, the Adoptive School, the Kellum program, the Health Career, the GED programs, the mentoring programs, the clinics that you make available for dental and health and other things that you're doing, and some of the participation that we're seeing from different leaders at Creighton getting involved with the network as well as North Omaha. And I wanted to walk through a presentation very quickly to give you some background on the Empowerment Network, but we want to make this more of an interactive experience. So we'll have some table discussions, and we'll get into the meat of what John said is there a divide? And if so, how do we close that divide? And beyond that, what are the things that we can build on now to make this an even better city, not just in certain portions, but make this a great city everywhere that we turn? This is just a quick piece. As I've had the opportunity to speak in different parts of the city, you see this all the time. When Omaha is considered across the world one of the top 6 cities in the entire world as far as getting it right, you can see the number of different things that have been recognized and talked about regarding Creighton. The challenge that we have is how do we extend that greatness to every single zip code? That is the mission that we're on. No matter if you're black, white, Latino, Native American, Asian, white, it does not, are all of those opportunities available in every single zip code? And we have to answer that question unanimously that right now those opportunities are not available in every location. Simply put, I'll go through these very quickly, but when you look at the number of open jobs where employers are trying to find skilled workers and the low unemployment rate, actually I found out today that's 4.1% unemployment rate in Omaha, yet in the zip code just to the north, we're looking at 25, 30, and in some pockets, some census tracts, 35% unemployment in North Omaha. When you talk about poverty, and again, this is something that doesn't get on the airwaves as much as it used to, but the level of poverty in the city versus those pockets of North Omaha and African Americans that are in poverty. 50% of African American children, at least 50%. A few years ago it was 60%. On the education side, when I moved here, I have a young son and a daughter. One of the things that brought my wife in here was what we heard about the public education system. And there are many positive things that are going on. We have a wonderful education system, but we still have a tremendous gap when it comes to African American students. So in 2006, a number of the people that are in the room tonight came together and said, what can we do on a collective basis? I've just recently, there's been a study out of Stanford Research that has been talking about this thing that's now the buzzword, collective impact. And I thought about it and started looking at collective impact, and what do they mean by collective impact? Well, it's what we said 5 years ago. Let's work together to make a tangible, measurable difference in our community. It's a different word now, collective impact, but that's what we've been doing, bringing pastors and others together, leaders in the community, educational leaders, crime prevention specialists, neighborhood residents, bringing them together in small groups, economic groups, health groups, which led to, again, this is a healthy family team, 5 people in the room, and we focus on this specific thing. How do we accelerate the pace of opportunity for African Americans, for North Omaha, and how do we grow and accelerate what's going on? How do we make a significant impact? But rather than just having the leaders decide that, we hosted meetings at Salem Baptist Church and throughout the community. This is one of the forums. And from all of those various meetings, we came up with what we call the Empowerment Covenant. And it's from living our faith to education to voting and a lot of different pieces that brought up that make up that Empowerment Covenant. And it comes down to these 3 things. For those that are taking notes, this is the central aspect of what makes the Empowerment Network different, I think, than most of other initiatives. Number 1, we believe in personal responsibility, that before we ask the government or anyone else for help or assistance, what is it that we can do ourselves? We have to stand up, be accountable for what we can do our part in our neighborhood, do our part in our home, do our part in school. What are the things that we can do? The second piece is leadership accountability. So if we're doing our part, then as an elected official, As a pastor, as the leader of a college, the leader of a department, whatever leadership position that you're in, there's some accountability that we have to hold each other to. So that's the second piece. And the third one, we believe strongly in comprehensive collaboration. We believe it's not one institution, not one school, not one business, not one social organization that will do this and accomplish this task by themselves. It will take all of us doing this and putting our hands to it. So that's the title, Inextricably Bound. We are tied together whether we like it or not. Everybody with me? We are tied together. Creighton cannot be great if North Omaha is not great. North Omaha will never be great if Creighton, the anchor institution to its south, is not great. We are tied together. We cannot have a top-level, world-class social entrepreneurship program when we have down the street, 2 blocks away, a community that is struggling with lack of business, lack of retail, and lack of neighborhood services. We cannot have a successful, thriving social justice institution when we are struggling on a statewide basis with the fact that we are not lead testing all of our kids that live in one of the largest lead testing zones in the entire country. I may not get an amen in here somewhere. We cannot have one of the best business institutions in the Midwest, potentially in the country, next to where we have small businesses that need that coaching, and we need additional people helping with that entrepreneurship. We cannot have one of the best health institutions in the Midwest, potentially in the country, next to an area that is deprived of so how can we coexist and be great in any of those factors if we are not comprehensively working together to deal with this on a day-to-day basis? That's the challenge. Now we're beginning to see some inroads happen where people are reaching out. There are clinics that are going on. There's the health pathway. There's other things that are going on. How do we build a comprehensive collective collaboration that we can look to this community? And when people are wondering, okay, what does this collaboration mean? What does it really mean? Can I just speak to you for a minute? What does collaboration mean? Because we've been at this now 5 years. Others, I'm looking around the room, they've been at it 40, 50 years. And what we're standing up and saying is that we have some personal responsibility to do our part, but we're not asking, I know I'm looking at Reverend Ford, we've had this conversation about many times in our community. It's African Americans stand up and say, we want to help ourselves. So we're not coming with our hand out like this, but our hand is turned like that. Reverend Ford, am I getting it right? Our hand is right here as equal partners at the table. So when decisions are being made, when brainstorming is going on, when the program is evaluated, when it's being developed, we are at the table as equal partners. Somebody say equal. Equal partners. And I think right now tonight, with the invitation from Creighton and the acceptance by the leaders that are here in this community, students, I'm looking out students that have come down the street and talked with us and visit us, professors that have come and visited with us, and the interaction that's happening, can this be the beginning or continuation of showing the city what it really means to partner, to really partner at a deep level and make incredible things happen that would not happen had we not partnered? I know it's quiet in here. Can we be the example? Because there's always been this perceived separation. Cuming Street, whether we believe it or not, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll speak it. When I came here, it was a divide. Students literally saying, don't go north of Cuming Street. Now, in North Omaha, we have to take some of the blame because we may have had leaders in place saying, don't come across Cuming Street. Everybody hear me? Let me go back to one other piece, and then we'll get some others involved in this. The other piece that really struck me, and I didn't realize this, but there's an incredible history and historical context here. And I didn't realize this, but some Creighton University students, am I getting this right? And some North Omaha students got together in the 40s and 50s. The Poorest Club, they actually had a bus boycott in Omaha before the other boycott in the South. A 2-year bus boycott where they literally forced the company to hire African-American drivers when they had resisted it for all those years. There was a bus boycott in Omaha, the Omaha bus boycott. In addition to that, some of the very marches and sit-ins and demonstrations, much of that happened in Omaha before it happened in Selma, Montgomery, or Atlanta. And it was started by Creighton University students and North Omaha students. Father McCombs, right? Am I getting Mark? Wow. On a historical context, we're already inextricably bound. Now, the question is, how do we take that history and the beginnings of what's been happening over the last few years and how we now build forward on that? There's a whole lot more that I could share with you regarding the Empowerment Network, but I think we have an opportunity here tonight to have dialogue and to have that conversation, because there may be some in here that disagree. Since I have the mic, I know it's hard to disagree. But at the tables, we can have this conversation and get deeper into it. So as we get deeper into it, we want to make sure that we have representatives from the Empowerment Network at each table, representatives from Creighton at each table, and we're going to ask a few questions, have you dialogue about it, capture some comments, and then we also want to walk out with some actionable things that we can do together. So we'll spend some time on that. Again, we have a number of different leaders that are here. Matter of fact, why don't I do that? We have with us Ivan Gilreath, who is with the Boys and Girls Club, if you would recognize him. And I know I'm going to skip some people, but Pastor Ashley that's here as well. Thank you for coming out, leader from North Omaha. Reverend Dwight Ford, who's the executive director of NCAP, and again, an active partner. Michael Maroney, the CEO of Omaha Economic Development Corporation. He's been at this, building homes and commercial developments for over 40 years. Michael Maroney. Freddie Gray, the Omaha School Board President. Ms. Freddie Gray, thank you so much. And I'm looking around the room here. Doris Lassiter, who's one of our co-chairs for the Health and Healthy Family Group and executive director of the Nebraska Center for Healthy Families. Thank you. Dr. Richard Brown, CEO of Charles Drew Health Center, who's another co-chair of our Health and Healthy Family team in the back there. Femi Awadeli right next to him, who's a co-chair of the Health and Healthy Family team. He travels internationally on marriage ministry and other work, so Femi Awadeli. I know I'm going to miss someone, but Shelley Henderson is here with us. She is the executive director of the Communities and Schools Initiative and also a co-chair of our education team along with Freddie Gray. Shelley Henderson. We have a special guest in town. We'll introduce her later. But Stacy Henry is the urban affairs person with the City of Omaha Mayor's Office. Stacy Henry. And we have with us Councilman Ben Gray, who's been with us since day one doing violence intervention, but now in elected official office. Councilman Ben Gray. And we have with us the former chief of police, but now the CEO of the Urban League, again, who's been with us since day one, Thomas Warren, CEO of the Urban League. And I want to make sure that you know this person as well, our Director of Operations for the Empowerment Network. She makes it happen on a day-to-day basis, Vicki Quates-Ferris, right here in front. I want to give you a context of what's happening right now. John mentioned this, but with the Empowerment Network, over the last few years, we brought together well over 500 organizations and partners. One of the other things that we've done is mobilize the faith community to get out into out of the churches and out of their places of worship and out onto the street, knocking on doors, praying for the community, helping community members at getting them connected with resources. We've also hosted positive events. This is now recognized by the City of Omaha as an official Harmony Week event. We have a full week and focused on creating a safe environment for the summer, and we've seen great results from that. We've also created what's called the Great Summer Jobs Program. As of today, it is now called Step Up Omaha, and the City of Omaha, hopefully you'll see on the news tonight, but we now, over the last few years with the partners in the room, we have put over 1,000 youth and young adults to work during the summer. We're now partnering with the City of Omaha through the support of the mayor, Stacy Henry, many others, Councilman Ben Gray, and a lot of the partners in the room that we're looking to hire at least 500 this summer, but with the goal of growing each year, and not just during the summer, but they will have extended opportunities moving into a year-round process. But that was launched out of the initiative of the Empowerment Network. The other thing is, as we work with our elected officials on policy, Councilman Ben Gray and others worked on this, where they worked with the mayor's office and others to make sure that we had a small emerging business ordinance. $10 million has come to small businesses because of that ordinance a couple of years ago. We also continue to host. That group of 5 people has grown into well over 90 that participate with the Health Summit. We've hosted some national and international leaders in. The first Friday, including tomorrow, we have faith leaders come in, 30 to 35 of them. We host summits, some of them on a monthly basis, the second Saturday of every month at North High School, jobs, violence prevention, housing. This is a kind of a highline summary of some of the things working together in a collective way that we've been able to accomplish over the last 5 years. There's a whole lot more on the list, but that's just the work of the Empowerment Network and many partners coming together. But many times there are things that are happening in our community that we don't know the full story. And I just want to bring this out as an instance. The Omaha Public Schools, one of the things we started with really 6 years ago, and well before that, the African American Achievement Council, was the goal of increasing the graduation rate for African American students. And you can see from 2002, where the graduation rate was 55%, it is, as of last year, 67%. We just received the most recent numbers. The number has climbed to 71% of African American students. That's collective work, all of from Creighton mentoring students, from all the way across the board. The Omaha Public Schools doing some things, the community doing pieces, people in this room. And I share that slide because we need to know, sometimes we don't see this anywhere. We don't see it in the media. We need to be able to celebrate the wins that we're beginning to see. In addition to that, the question is, okay, well, they're graduating from high school, but are they prepared for post-secondary? I can show you that over the last 8 years, it's gone from 53% of African-American kids going on to post-secondary up to now almost 70% that are going on to post-secondary experience. And the final piece on that is, okay, now they're graduating. Now are they going on? And we're not where we want to be. We want to be at 100%. But if we never celebrate, I mean, we don't wait till the game is over before we clap when a football game or basketball game's going. We need to celebrate some of these things that are happening because of collaboration. And now we see almost 70% that are going on to some type of post-secondary. And the numbers that we're seeing now is the retention rate is also increasing at the college ranks. So 3 critical factors when specifically looking at African American students and other students, we're seeing those things move in the right direction. There's a whole lot of other slides that we could look at, but I just want to report out that those are some of the things that you are a part of making happen. What would happen if we get even tighter and a more collective, collaborative basis, looked at the real data, not what's always reported in the media, but the real data of what's going on, and then how do we build on that and accelerate the pace, going right back to the goal that we started 5 years ago. If you look at the average number of homicides, sometimes when you watch television or read the paper, you would think Omaha is the most violent city in the country. I'm here to tell you, based on the numbers and the facts, you can look at where we rank. It's still 32 too many, as far as we're concerned. 32 homicides, 1 is way too many. But if you look at if you put it in context and perspective, this is where Omaha sits. Now you look at the trend line. Over the last, it moved, and it was, of course, we had our worst year of homicides was in 2008. And then as we work together on a more collaborative basis, we launched an initiative called Omaha 360, where we're on the street working with the police department, encouraging neighborhoods to get involved, faith to communities on the street. You see a 31% decrease. Now you begin to see now things moving up. What we have noticed is when young people are working, I'll get there in a second, but then that's the homicide rate. But look at the overall aggravated assaults number and what's happened since 2000. This is Omaha. These are measurable results that really are not being talked about. The other one that doesn't talk about as well is the Omaha gun assault trend. People say it's never been this violent in Omaha. If you look at the real numbers of what's going on in the community, you've seen a decrease from 2006 when this group started working together. You've seen that now you did a small step back up in the wrong direction, but a lot of that ties back to unemployment. We have a 21% unemployment rate, 21%. If you look specifically at African American young men, that rate is as high as 35% of African American young men between the ages of 18 and 29 that do not have a job in our community. That's not down south, that's not East Coast, that is Omaha, Nebraska. So this is what happens, we believe, when you put people to work. We were having a terrible spike of violence in 2010, and we, again, focused on bringing community together, getting jobs created, and you can see that nearly 5 months in North Omaha without a homicide. And in addition to that, not only a reduction in homicides, but we also saw a reduction in gun assaults as well. There's a whole lot of other stuff. This is a neighborhood that we saw some various incidents going on. We brought together stakeholders in that neighborhood. So that's 30 days before. This is 30 days after that intervention. This is 50 days before the intervention. This is 60 days after the intervention. And this is deeper up in North Omaha, but the key is when community and partners are actively engaged, we see a measurable decrease, as much as 75, 80, 90% decrease when the community actively works out on the street, neighborhood associations and everybody else. We can turn it around. It's measurable, neighborhood after neighborhood. The question becomes, as a community and as a city, how do we sustain the efforts? Because typically what happens is, because we're limited on resources, we have to move the law enforcement or move this group. But what we're working on right now is making sure that we have these types of efforts sustained in every one of our communities. But again, I wanted to go back to the question, if you look at us compared to other cities, when people say we're more violent than Kansas City or more violent than what, if you look at the numbers realistically, this is where we are. Perception and the way the media has portrayed it has made things really out of whack, out of balance. And I have to be fair and say, over the last 6 months, we've been working very directly with the World Herald, more directly with the stations, and they are being a lot more receptive, because we are now showing other people around the community that there's real positive things going on that are not being covered. Based on what you've just seen as far as the trends on education, there's some other things that we talked about as far as housing revitalization. This past summer, we received City Council approval for the revitalization of a key area in North Omaha, 24th and Lake, 30th and Parker, Adams Park / Malcolm X. There's some really rich opportunities within 2 or 3 blocks, 4 blocks of the Creighton campus. Again, we want to thank John Pierce. We want to thank John Pierce for inviting us here for this dialogue and conversation. Let's recognize John Pierce. With that, I want to personally thank you. I want to thank you on behalf of the Empowerment Network. And again, thank you for your opportunity, or the opportunity just to be here tonight, interact with you.